having 3 running backs that are pretty proven, what's the challenge of balancing carries for 3 of them and also kind of riding the hot hand?
Yeah, all 3 of those guys and the 2 new freshmen we got are all playing at a really high level. Our job is to find creative ways to get them the ball and utilize their skill set. You're exactly right, though. Hot hand, sometimes a guy gets rolling and you don't take that guy out of the ball game. But the way we play with tempo and the amount of snaps we're going to get, man, just because you're not the first guy on the field doesn't necessarily mean you don't end up getting the most carries that day. It's just rolling guys through, making sure everyone stays fresh, and that we always have a guy on the field that's capable of ready and going in that moment and not gassed out.
Patrick, then Reese in the back.
Joey, where do you feel like you guys are on the offensive line, or you feel like you're pretty close to having a starting 5, and is there a chance you guys might rotate a couple positions even into the season?
Yeah, feel really good about how the offensive line's looking. Like you said, there are guys that can rotate in and play a bunch of spots. That's what's really good about the guys we have is guys can go in and out. We got guys that can play all 3 positions, so it's really helpful having that kind of utilization with the guys up front. Feel really good about the 5 we're going to roll out there with in a couple weeks, and feel like we can put a good product on the field with them.
A couple questions, Coach Halzle back here. Last time we talked to you, you talked about Milton working on his lower body and his mechanical adjustments there. How long did it take him to get comfortable with those mechanical adjustments?
He's the type of athlete that he can feel his body, so he understood what we were trying to accomplish quickly. It was just making it the habit of, like, that's just how I throw. Because in individual, you start building it, and then you take it to routes on air, you take it to 7-on-7, and maybe it doesn't look quite the same. Then you go back to Indy and you push it. So just over this offseason, it just kept incrementally getting better. It wasn't like one day off, one day on. It was a growth throughout the whole thing where it just becomes that's how you throw now. Where it's not like, hey, I have to try to do that. That's just the way he throws now.
And with reps, he obviously gets better at that, but how often do you see him kind of going back to his old mechanical form?
Man, you don't really see it very often. Like every once in a while, naturally playing football, you're going to get yourself in a bad body position. It is what it is. There's going to be a free rusher. There's going to be someone busting on a route. Well, now my body's in a weird spot. So we actually work drills to help us get out of bad situations. So I guess, human nature, every once in a while you miss with a mechanical function. But for the most part, we're able to replicate really well and keep the same motion.
Austin, then Ben.
Pass catching and running routes seems pretty natural to McCallum and Ethan Davis.
Mm-hmm.
How have they improved, with putting their hand in the ground, the physicality and blocking part of that position?
It's been great watching them from spring to fall camp. Callie was just learning. He played in a system that wasn't going fast at all. So his whole thing was not playing as fast as he could because he was just learning what to do. And now that he's dialed in on everything, like that's a big, strong dude that'll come off the ball and hit you. It's fun to watch him. He'll strike people like an old school fullback, but then he can run, like you're saying, like a slot and be a matchup issue for safeties. Ethan, he lived that world of playing a lot of receiver coming out of high school. He has no fear of getting in there and mixing it up with people. He'll put his face on people. So it's been good watching him. It's very similar to Callie, where you go from learning what to do, like what's my step, am I getting the backside hand through, and all of a sudden the defensive ends are running through you, to I know what to do, and now I'll come off and shoot my hands and put my face in there. So he's still got some growth to do in that area, but the best thing that you see with a young tight end that hasn't done it a lot is he's not scared.
Joey, with the tempo with Cooper being out, has that been something that you really had to hammer home with the guys working there? How would you assess where that is for the week to go before kickoff?
No issues with our that's how we play. Everybody knows how we play. We play one type of way when we take the field, so we're ready to roll.
Adam, then Rob.
Joe has said when he first got here, he didn't build relationships with receivers and teammates as much off the field. Everything was on the field, and he's grown into that. Looks like he enjoys being a mentor now.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that changed, and when did you see it change?
I think it comes in a lot like when you come in mid-year like him. Like he wasn't even in January. He was here in June. I think sometimes you have to be a little intrinsically focused because you're just trying to learn and give yourself a chance to go get on the field, where it almost feels you don't have time to do that part of it, which playing that position is a huge part of having everyone bought into you as a person as opposed to just you as a player. So as he's gotten more comfortable here, more comfortable in his role, it's really as his understanding of the offense has grown and grown where he's not worried about that part of it. He's been able to put some energy and put a lot of his energy towards bringing the next group of guys along and making sure he's got that type of real relationship with his fellow team.
Coach, the last 2 years you guys have had a pretty tight rotation at wide receiver. Have you seen enough from the young kids to wonder if that rotation might grow this year?
Yeah, we got 5 or 6 guys we feel really comfortable rolling with, keeping guys fresh, like similar to my conversation with the running backs. Roll guys through, let guys keep playing. We feel really confident with that whole core.
Joey, obviously familiarity with Coach Halzle and the staff. What's it been like for you this camp as you transition into this first full season in your new role?
Yeah, as far as like the game planning, I said it when I first took this role, like we've all done that all together. Like that's never just been a one person shows up and says this is how we're doing it. It's extremely communal. The staff's been awesome around me. So it's been a great transition. It hasn't been like, drinking through a fire hose. There are more like as far as going into a meeting time, like I have to have everything prepped on the front end. I can't just show up and take my notes and can't just stare at my quarterback as we're watching tape and seeing how that's going. You got to see what everybody's doing and making sure the whole thing hangs together perfectly. So as far as an adjustment, like that would be the main. Also, you have to talk a whole lot more. Like you got to talk the whole meeting. I'm kind of done talking by the end of the day.
Is that
but
a good thing for you?
not a big talker. You know what I mean? But that's the main part of it is the front end. Everything is on you to make sure it's prepared so everyone else can have a smooth transition through their day.
Wes, then Eric.
Joey, I'm sure it's different for every individual player, but if you could speak generally about teaching players how to play this fast,
Mm-hmm.
how do you go about that process? Because for some guys, even if they've gone tempo a little bit before in high school, it's nothing like, I'm sure, the tempo that y'all are playing with. How do you get guys trained mentally and physically and everything to be able to execute doing that?
Yeah, we show like continuous tape. We call it ball mechanics of how everything should operate between the snap. And the biggest thing we have to drive home to our young guys or our transfers coming in is it's not a fire drill out there with everyone running around crazy. All it is efficiency between the snaps. Operate efficiently between the snap, and you're going to be fine. If you're all over the place between the snap, you're going to have a hard time functioning. Like that's boilerplate base level what it is to be able to play like we do.
Eric.
Joey's been referenced that Joe Milton was a big-time leader on this football team last year and in 2021, but at one point in time during the offseason or maybe in fall camp, did he take ownership of being the guy this year?
It's really been since bowl prep last year, when it was very clear at that point with Hendon's injury and everything that it was his team to take over. He didn't shy away from it, but he also didn't become fake and like change the way he was. He was just him, and with a new dedicated new spirit about it, where he just said, all right, this is like I'm responsible for this unit now, and I got to make sure that it's going the way it needs to go.
Patrick.
Joey, what's the dynamic like at the slot position with Squirrel and Dante? Obviously, that's been a really productive position for you guys the past 2 years, but those guys want to be the guy there. How's that dynamic, and what's the name of the plan there for those guys?
It's been great. Like it's very similar to what we talked about in the quarterback room. Like we have guys that actually support each other, and very similar again to the running back question. Like the way we play, there's not a shortage of snaps to go around. There's not a shortage of opportunities to catch balls. So we don't really get a lot of like that backbiting in the locker room. You know what I'm saying? It's a very amicable workspace for everybody. And you go get yours, come off the field, I'll go get mine. You know what I mean? That's kind of the mindset for a lot of our skill set guys.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.